We've gathered quite a bit of material, articles, notes, research, covering all the latest buzz in professional wrestling.
That's right.
And it's quite a mix today. We're looking back at Backlash, looking ahead to Saturday night's main event, digging into a roster name change, which is always interesting, and even peeking at some potential big plans for way down the road.
So yeah, consider this your quick way to get caught up on the big talking points, maybe some of the behind-the-scenes thinking too.
Okay, let's dive into that first big piece then. Backlash in St. Louis. Sounds like it made some waves.
It definitely got people talking. Attendance numbers looked really solid. Right around that 17,000 mark. WWE said 17,155. WrestleTix was just a hair under that.
Basically a packed house.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the fan reaction, judging by that poll you mentioned, over 2,200 votes, seems really positive. What was it, like 71.7% thumbs up?
Yeah, a big majority. Only about 10% thumbs down, with the rest in the middle. So yeah, overwhelmingly positive feedback from that group.
Interesting. And the show itself, the structure. You mentioned this Triple H formula.
Right. It seems to be the pattern for these non-WrestleMania PLEs. Keep it tight, you know.
Yeah.
5, maybe 6 matches.
Makes sense.
And it does make them feel pretty easy to watch. You don't feel like you're signing up for a marathon.
Okay, let's get into some specific matches that the sources highlighted. Pat McAfee versus Gunther. Sounds like Pat really felt that one.
Oh, absolutely. He was quite open about how grueling it was, physically intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, talked about his back, hips, knees, said the chest chops felt like they popped his eardrums.
Wow.
Gives you a real sense of the impact. But what seemed important to him was feeling like he earned Gunther's respect. That nod Gunther gave him afterward apparently meant a lot. And yeah, some sources definitely felt that match over-delivered.
Speaking of over-delivering, the John Cena versus Randy Orton match.
Yeah.
One source called it a potential crapshoot on paper.
Yeah, that was the term used. But apparently it also surprised them in a good way.
Also.
Sounds like it was built around those big signature moves, you know? Attitude adjustments, RKOs.
Crowd pleasers.
Exactly. And the St. Louis crowd just ate it up. One person noted that even though it went almost half an hour, it didn't feel that long, which is usually a good sign, right? Means the crowd was into it the whole time.
Definitely. And the show had variety, too, like Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria.
Right. That one was pegged as a very good technical wrestling match, so something for the fans who really appreciate that style.
And the U.S. title Fatal 4-Way even got called maybe the best thing on the show by one source.
It did. But then you had Dominik Mysterio versus Penta. One source found that one pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
But with Dominik, often the main event isn't the match itself, but just seeing how the crowd reacts to him, that's become such a huge part of his whole presentation.
So a real mix then. Sports entertainment spectacle, a grudge match feel, the multi-man chaos, technical wrestling.
Yeah, a bit of everything. They clearly tried to offer different styles on the card.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. How did Backlash do outside the arena? Thinking about those viewership numbers on Netflix internationally, Dave Meltzer had some insights reported, right?
Yeah, and this is where it gets into the business side of things. Pretty interesting stuff.
What did the numbers show?
Well, the key takeaway is that Backlash didn't crack the Netflix top 10 in any of the charted countries outside the U.S., which means basically it had fewer than 1.6 million views in those markets.
Okay. How does that stack up against, say, Raw or SmackDown on Netflix in those same places?
That's where it gets nuanced. Compared to Raw, Backlash actually drew more viewers in the UK, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico.
Oh, interesting.
But it drew fewer viewers than Raw in Australia, New Zealand, India, and Canada. So when you average it all out, the estimate is Backlash probably did similar numbers to Raw internationally on Netflix, maybe around 1.46 million homes.
So similar to a regular Raw episode.
Roughly, yeah. It did beat SmackDown pretty much everywhere they had data for, though.
So even a big PLE like Backlash isn't necessarily pulling in massively more international viewers on Netflix than their weekly flagship show.
According to this data, it seems that way, and this ties into a bigger point Meltzer made, looking ahead to the PLE rights negotiations in 2020 soon. He noted something interesting about the crowd, too. While European crowds often get praised for being loud and chant-heavy.
Yeah, we hear that a lot.
The St. Louis crowd was different. They reacted more to the actual match, the story, the near falls. Meltzer felt that actually made the matches better because the reactions felt more connected to the action.
So, great in-arena reaction. But the global Netflix numbers maybe tell a slightly different story about reach.
Exactly. The data suggests that since the Rumble, no WWE PLE outside the US has hit that Netflix top 10 mark. And the implication, especially thinking about Netflix as a potential bidder, is whether these PLEs are really driving new subscribers or if they're mostly watched by people who are already subscribed and probably watching Raw anyway.
So the extra value, the subscriber growth value, might be less than maybe WWE hopes.
That's the question this data raises, according to the sources. Look, Netflix will likely still bid strongly. Being on Netflix offers potentially huge global reach compared to Peacock in the US.
Of course.
But these numbers suggest the PLEs themselves might not be the silver bullet for adding new international wrestling fans to Netflix. It definitely adds a wrinkle to those upcoming negotiations.
It really does. It's not just about the show itself, but how it performs across all these platforms and what that means for the business.
It's all connected these days.
Okay, let's shift gears completely now. Away from looking back, let's look at the immediate future. Saturday night's main event 39 is coming up, May 24th, 2025. We've got confirmed matches.
Yep, 4 big ones announced. And the thinking is this will likely be the full card for the 2-hour broadcast.
First up, undisputed WWE Championship. John Cena defending against R-Truth.
Right, and this one has that classic R-Truth flavor, doesn't it? He helped Cena at Backlash.
Right, interfered against Orton.
And then Cena put him through a table afterward.
Of course he did.
And Truth's take is, well, classic Truth. He thinks Cena is motivational, but maybe needs to be beat back to his senses. It's leaning into their unique dynamic.
Definitely unique.
Okay, next. World Heavyweight Championship match. We've got Jey Uso defending against Logan Paul.
Whoa. That's a huge defense for Jey against a massive name like Logan Paul.
Absolutely. Then there's a big tag match, CM Punk and Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker.
That's a star power there.
For sure. And finally, a steel cage match. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre.
Ooh, ending things in the cage.
That's exactly how they framed it. Announced specifically to end things between them, saying a regular match wouldn't cut it, positioning it as the big feud finale.
Sounds like a potentially very strong 2-hour show. Now, let's zoom in on a specific roster thing, a name change that got you some attention.
Right. This involves Jeff Cobb, who debuted at Backlash, helping out Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu against LA Knight.
And commentary initially just called him Jeff Cobb.
They did during the actual show, but then later on the post-show stuff, they made a point of saying he was once known as Jeff Cobb, kind of signaling, a change was coming.
And we know the new name now.
We do. It's JC Mateo. Confirmed on WWE's social media by the ring announcer. Solo even introduced him as just JC on SmackDown, and commentary has been using that since.
Okay, JC Mateo. But here's the really interesting part, the sort of behind-the-scenes look from Dave Meltzer's reporting. Another name was apparently strongly considered, JC Matanza.
Exactly. And for fans who remember Lucha Underground, Matanza Cueto was Cobb's huge monster character there.
Right, the dominant force.
Totally. So using Matanza would have been a pretty direct nod to that history. A cool little Easter egg for those fans.
So, why didn't they use it if it had that connection?
Well, Meltzer's report laid out a couple of key reasons. One, it seems AAA, who bought the Lucha Underground library, didn't actually own the intellectual property for that specific character name, Matanza.
Legal stuff.
Potentially. And maybe just as importantly, the report says Jeff Cobb himself just didn't like the name.
Oh, okay. Talent preference.
Yeah. So it wasn't just a potential rights issue. The wrestler's own feeling about it seems to have been a big factor in going with JC Mateo instead.
That's fascinating. Shows it's not always just creative throwing darts at a board. There's legality, talent input.
All part of the mix.
Okay, one last thing. Looking even further ahead now. Money in the Bank 2025, set for June 7th in Inglewood, California. There's a rumor, or an idea floating around backstage in creative, about a potential mainstream crossover.
Yeah, this report suggests they're kicking around the idea of involving hip-hop star Travis Scott in a major match at that show.
Travis Scott.
The name being floated as his potential partner is the undisputed WWE champion, John Cena.
Cena and Travis Scott. Okay, that's big.
Definitely high profile. The report says they're considering either a standard tag team match or maybe a 6-man tag.
Any word on who they might face?
Opponents aren't locked down in this report, but past discussions about celebrity matches have thrown out names like Bad Bunny, maybe even Cody Rhodes in some capacity.
So this is clearly WWE creative, actively brainstorming ways to get that big mainstream pop for a major event. Kind of ties back to reaching beyond the core fans, right?
Absolutely. Always looking for those moments that might grab headlines and bring in casual viewers or even non-fans. So wrapping up our thoughts on Backlash in St. Louis, we saw some major storylines move forward, especially with that one last time match between Cena and Orton.
Definitely felt like a significant chapter closing, or maybe turning.
We had title defenses, some successful, some maybe setting up rematches, new feuds kicking off, and a pretty massive debut in Jeff Cobb.
Yeah, Cobb's arrival is a big deal. Adds a whole new dynamic, especially around the bloodline and the U.S. title scene.
It definitely feels like Backlash was a crucial event in kind of shaping the direction for WWE post-WrestleMania.
Absolutely. That billing of Cena versus Orton as one last time, given Cena's impending retirement at the end of the year, it carries huge weight.
Makes you wonder, yeah.
It makes you consider what the future of WWE even looks like, without him as a regular presence, and how Orton moves forward from this.
And those surprises, like Cobb showing up, the intensity in that women's IC title match finish, it really injected an extra level of excitement, didn't it?
It did. It's that mix, isn't it?
Definitely.
Celebrating the established legends while also clearly building towards the next generation and the next big stories.
So as we finish up this deep dive into Backlash, here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Given this blend, we saw long-standing rivalries maybe reaching an end, new faces arriving, new feuds starting. Where do you think WWE is heading next?
Good question.
What lasting impact do you think Backlash will have on Raw and SmackDown as we move deeper into 2025? It certainly feels like we're on the cusp of some potentially significant shifts in the whole landscape.